Pope Francis met this week with his Council of Cardinals. Reforms of the Vatican bureaucracy are in the air, just as a new iPhone message by the Pope to Evangelicals surfaces. Bishop Robert Morlino of Madison, Wisconsin, will react. And Jesus returns to the big screen on February 28th in Son of God. We'll bring you my in-depth, exclusive interview with producers Mark Burnett and Roma Downey from their home. And finally, unrest is consuming Syria, Ukraine, Venezuela. What is fueling the turmoil? Advisor to the Anti-terrorism Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives, Dr. WALID PHARES returns. Lots to bring you tonight. The World Over Live begins right now.
Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. Bishop Robert Morlino, Mark Burnett, and Roma Downey, as well as Dr. WALID PHARES, are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's program, send me a tweet at Raymond Arroyo. I'll be live tweeting throughout the show. Or drop us an email at worldover@EWTN.com. Lots to get to. Let's start. Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. 3 months of mostly peaceful anti-government protests in Ukraine exploded into deadly violence this week. According to protesters, at least 100 were killed and 500 more wounded on Thursday in and around Kiev's Independence Square. 2 short-lived truces broke down quickly. Protesters tossed firebombs and advanced upon police lines. Government snipers shot back. Ukrainian television showed shocking scenes of protesters being mowed down by gunfire, lying on the pavement as comrades rushed to their aid. Government officials say 67 police have been captured. World and church leaders are calling for calm as well as restraint from the Kiev government. Orthodox priests have put themselves in harm's way, literally standing between police and the protesters. Orthodox leaders have sided with the protesters in their opposition to the government, which they see as being too closely aligned with Moscow, a threat to democracy and freedom. More on this later in the show. And the violence continues in Nigeria as Boko Haram has struck again. Chanting Allah is great, jihadists gunned down dozens, slit the throats of others, and burned still more alive in the latest attacks in a northeastern village. The victims, more than 50 in all, were themselves Muslim. The attack came 3 days after another 47 people were killed at a school. There are a number of Christian villages in the primarily Muslim northeastern Nigeria. Boko Haram has for years targeted both Christians and Muslims in their push to create a breakaway Islamic state. A government offensive initiated last May has largely failed to stem the insurgency. And it's been a busy week at the Vatican for Pope Francis and the Church's cardinals as they gather in a consistory and to begin this formal induction of 19 new cardinals on Saturday. On Thursday, in anticipation of the Synod for the Family in October, the Holy Father told the 180 cardinals to direct their attention to the beauty of the family and marriage and how indispensable the family is for the life of the world and for the future of humanity. Earlier in the week, the Pope and his group of 8 cardinal advisors met and discussed reform within the troubled Institute for Works of Religion, better known as the Vatican Bank. The 8 offered a 3-page report and recommendations. However, those recommendations are for the Pope's eyes only, and they'll remain confidential, according to Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi. More on the latest from Rome in our next segment. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister David Cameron and a soon-to-be cardinal are clashing over welfare reform. Before leaving for Rome to receive his red hat, Westminster's Cardinal Delegate Vincent Nichols said welfare cuts have torn apart the safety net for the poor. He said it was, quote, a real dramatic crisis, and for the country of our affluence, that, quite frankly, is a disgrace, end quote. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, Cameron said he deeply disagreed with the Cardinal Archbishop's assessment. He said the reforms aim to end a growing dependency culture so that people are able to stand on their own 2 feet and build a better life for themselves and their family. And back in the U.S., another defeat for traditional marriage. Oregon's Democrat Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum said Thursday that she will not defend the state's marriage law. She says the law cannot withstand a federal constitutional challenge. It's been a rough couple of weeks for marriage. A federal judge last week ruled that Kentucky must recognize same-sex marriages performed in other states. Legal challenges to traditional marriage were also launched in Texas, Louisiana, and Missouri. Attorneys general in Virginia, Pennsylvania, California, Nevada, and Illinois have also refused to defend their states' respective marriage laws. Another multi-million-dollar clerical abuse settlement in Los Angeles. Last week, the Archdiocese paid $13 million to 17 alleged victims. 11 of the victims were allegedly abused by the same now laicized priest, Nicolas Aguilar Rivera. In 1988, Aguilar Rivera fled to his native Mexico after being informed by archdiocesan officials of abuse charges from several altar boys. The Archdiocese did not tell police of the allegations for another 2 days. Aguilera Rivera remains at large, and according to a deposition unsealed on Wednesday, Cardinal Roger Mahony, the then Archbishop of L.A., directed the vicar of clergy not to give police a list of altar boys who worked with the priest. Cardinal Mahony said he did it out of concern for the altar boys, saying it could be, quote, very traumatic to those servers to all of a sudden be sitting in front of a policeman being interrogated. The cardinal is unlikely to face obstruction of justice charges due to the statute of limitations. The nation's largest archdiocese has now paid $720 million to abuse victims over the past decade. And despite being retired, the Archbishop of Los Angeles, the former Archbishop, Cardinal Mahony, is quite active. Before leaving for the consistory in Rome, Mahony blogged his disapproval of House Republicans for their inaction on immigration reform. Specifically, he called for a House vote on the comprehensive package passed by the Senate last year. He accused the GOP of dilatory tactics, labeling them as tragic. The Bishop of Buffalo, New York, has publicly rebuked a politician for changing his position on abortion. State Senator Timothy Kennedy told the media this past weekend that his abortion stance had evolved from pro-life to pro-choice. He insists that he remains a practicing Catholic. This drew the ire of Bishop Richard Malone. In a statement, the bishop said, "For anyone to say that he or she is a faithful Catholic and to be pro-abortion, pro-choice rights is totally inconsistent with Catholic teaching, which is clearly articulated in the Catechism of the Catholic Church." The bishop continued, "Practicing Catholics who claim they're nurturing their children in the faith must teach their children that abortion is intrinsically evil, that human life must be respected and protected absolutely from the moment of conception." End quote. And if cranking out best-selling CDs weren't enough to keep them busy, the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, have a new mission, staffing the Pontifical North American College Library in Rome. And because of their new duties, Sister Maximilian Marie and Sister Mary Cecilia of the Order presented Pope Francis with their 2013 hit CD, Mater Eucharistia, earlier this week. The album was recorded during the conclave that elected Pope Francis, and in the middle of recording the Te Deum track, the famous white smoke appeared. As you can see from the video of that priceless moment, so I guess it's fitting that the Dominican sisters personally delivered the recording to the Pope. Don't you love how they even got him to tilt the CD up for the camera? He'll be doing lead vocals on the next CD if they keep this up. When we return, lots of news coming out of Rome as the Pope meets with his cardinal counselors and sends a message of unity to evangelicals. Bishop Robert Morlino of Madison, Wisconsin, will give us His take on it all, and Mark Burnett and Roma Downey are straight ahead when The World Over Live continues. Keep it right here.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. Pope Francis has met with his Council of Cardinals to discuss reforms at the Vatican. Papal comments on the Old Latin Mass of the Roman Rite surfaced this week, as did an extraordinary papal video message to evangelical ministers. Here via satellite to put it all in perspective is Bishop Robert Morlino of Madison, Wisconsin. Your Excellency, thanks for being here.
I'm very happy to be here, Raymond. Actually, thank you for coming to visit me in my office.
That's right. You see, you don't even have to come to us. We come to you. Now, last week, Cardinal O'Malley was on the program, and he is the member or a member of the G8 Reform Council advising the Pope. And we asked him about the much reported focus of this upcoming Synod on the Family. Now, reports keep returning to the talk of amending the Church's teaching on contraception or rethinking the way the Church reaches out to divorced and remarried Catholics. Now, this is Filipino Cardinal Designate Orlando Cuervado. He's at the Vatican. Listen to this. I want your reaction.
They would expect some kind of stability in the same line of doctrine that the Church has had. It does not mean that they don't want any change, but they want to see some kind of a pastoral approach.
Your Excellency, we keep hearing this mentioned. A pastoral approach, a pastoral response has been invoked so often over the last few days, especially concerning divorced and remarried Catholics and the contraceptive teaching. Do you see any changes coming in that regard?
Not any substantial changes, Raymond. It's becoming more and more clear to me as I try to learn more about Pope Francis and his background that in Argentina, the bread and butter of everyday ministry of bishops and priests is the pastoral ministry, reaching out to those who are in need, in a particular way the poor, and addressing their needs, because in Argentina, I gather that there isn't any daily representation of Catholics who reject the teaching of the Church. Mm-hmm. And so I think when Pope Francis emphasizes the pastoral, he emphasizes that against the background of his experience in Argentina, which is the best that any of us can do, is to talk from where we come from. What's really unfortunate about this situation of the use of the word pastoral is that usually people look upon this as, do I get to be pastoral or do I get to proclaim the truth? Is being pastoral at the expense of the truth? And there are some people in the Church who want it to be. They somehow, I don't know how, but they look upon the truth as secondary, and the truth then can be adjusted to help the individual be in front of them, feel better about things, feel better about themselves. And we've always struggled with this. Pope Benedict said so well, only what is true can ultimately be pastoral. Our pastoral outreach is filled with love for the person and a respect that owes them the truth. And when couples are applying for a marriage annulment, for example, they have a right to the truth. We respect and love them by telling them the truth with love. Mm-hmm. And if the truth allows them to receive an annulment and receive a declaration of nullity and then enter into marriage, well then, good. Mm-hmm. If the truth says that their first marriage, their prior marriage, was indeed valid and therefore cannot be dissolved, then we say we want to welcome you and help you to live with this cross. We want to help you carry the cross. But it can't become part of the pastoral ministry to help people avoid carrying a cross when the circumstances of their life lead them precisely there.
Bishop, the Pope renewed his Argentinian passport this week, even though he is automatically a Vatican citizen. Now, people are reading different things into this. What do you read here very quickly?
I read a very predictable response of a true Argentinian. The Argentinian people are different, as I'm beginning to learn, from most of the rest of Latin America in several ways. But one of the most important ways is they have a profound culture and a profound educational background, and they are very passionately loyal to their country. Now,
And you think that's what this is an expression of? Not in any way a rejection of his Vatican citizenship or his current position?
I think, you know, they say in medicine that the common illnesses occur commonly. In other words, look for the easiest explanation. And the easiest explanation to this, I think, is that as a passionate Argentinian, he simply wants to hold fast to that to which his heart is loyal. And I think it's a very human, understandable phenomenon. And I think that reading too much into it is a trap that the mass media continue to set for all of us.
Well, we'll try not to fall into it. A remarkable papal message surfaced this week to Pentecostals. Bishop Tony Palmer, who's the ecumenical officer at the Communion of Evangelical Episcopal Churches, recorded this with his iPhone, and it was played at a Kenneth Copeland conference in Texas. It's extraordinary. Watch this clip.
La grammatica semplice, due regole. Ama Dio soprattutto e ama l'altro perché è tuo fratello e la tua sorella. Li amava. Una lunga strada di peccato comunitario. Ma chi ha la colpa? Tutti abbiamo la colpa. Tutti siamo peccatori. Soltanto uno è il giusto, il Signore. Io ho la nostalgia e vi chiedo anche un favore, di pregare per me perché ho bisogno delle vostre preghiere. Io prego per voi, lo farò, ma io ho bisogno delle vostre preghiere e pregare al Signore perché ci unisca tutti.
Bishop, have you ever seen anything like this? I mean, this was an impromptu message the Pope delivered to someone's iPhone. He asks for unity. He says, please pray for me. What's the effect of this, and have you ever seen anything like it?
Well, I guess I've never seen anything like it from a Pope, but that is not in any sense by itself to make a negative pronouncement about anything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see anything when that clip was being played and heard, and I picked up bits and pieces from Francis in the Italian because he speaks softly.
Right.
But he seems to be saying we're all equally to blame, and let's therefore move forward and unite.
Yeah.
Is that the general gist of it?
That's it. No, that's what he said. And he said we all have sins, and in history we've all committed them, and you know, let's let God complete this miracle of unity that he's begun.
Glory to the Father.
Well, again, see, what he's doing is he's exercising his pastoral ministry of being the source and summit of unity. And so he immediately, as I think I've even said before with you, Raymond, he is focusing completely on the idea that Jesus will draw us together. Let's keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. We're all sinners, and Jesus will draw us together. He doesn't think, he's not instinctively drawn to talk about doctrinal issues or doctrinal clarity or doctrinal differences. What he wants to do is take people where they are.
All right, again, it's that pastoral
approach.
approach.
A step closer. And I think that is always his default, because, as I said again, he wasn't faced in his background with daily challenges to doctrine. and clarity of doctrine. When he says, I'm a son of the church, he really means it. But I think he dealt with people who were sons and daughters of the church and who had other real pastoral needs. Whereas here in the United States, one of the deepest pastoral needs is the pastoral need for the truth about faith and the truth about morals.
Your Excellency,
and
I
that's
have
something that a bishop here confronts every day.
I'm sorry I have to cut you off. I only have 30 seconds. A Czech Archbishop, Jan Grabner, claims that while speaking to the Pope, he made some negative comments about the extraordinary form of the Mass, or the Latin Mass. And according to a website that credits Vatican Radio, the Pope said he could not understand why a younger generation wished to return to the old rite. And the Archbishop quotes the Pope, and he says, I find that it's rather a kind of a fad. And since it's a kind of fad, it doesn't need that much attention. Your reaction to this? Some are saying this is a sign that the Pope really doesn't care for the Latin rite, and he's very dismissive of those who pursue it.
Well, interestingly enough, Raymond, Archbishop Roach in the Congregation for Divine Worship said recently that the Pope has never said anything to him about the ordinary form or the extraordinary form, one way or the other. And I would just say for myself, if I was in with the bishop at an ad limina visit, and I had a moment to speak to the Pope privately, or even what we talked about publicly, I would never approach the press further to discuss it.
Very good.
Myself.
Bishop Robert Morlino, as always, thank you so much for your insights. We got to run. We're hitting a hard break here. But we will talk to you again soon, hopefully in Rome.
All the best, Raymond.
Thank you very much. Well, Jesus is returning to a Cineplex near you. The Hollywood producers who made it possible, reality visionary Mark Burnett and actress Roma Downey, are up next to tell us about their labor of love, Son of God, when the World Over Live continues. Stay right there.
A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel.
The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us.
Lady, I believe your son is the promised king of his people. What is his name?
Jesus. His name is Jesus.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. My next guests produced last year's massive hit miniseries, The Bible, on the History Channel. Seen by more than 100 million people and counting just in the U.S., not to say the rest of the world. Now they're set to bring the life of Christ back to the silver screen. On February 28th, their new film, Son of God, hits theaters. I sat down with husband and wife team, the godfather of reality television, Mark Burnett, and actress Roma Downey, at their home in Southern California. We spoke about the Son of God movie, their personal backgrounds, and the faith that drove them to this project. Here's my exclusive in-depth interview with Mark Burnett and Roma Downey. Well, it appears the tribe has spoken. This Bible miniseries has been a phenomenon, not only here in the United States, really around the globe. Tell us, first of all, did you expect anything like this when you began this project, Mark?
Oh, you know, we had hoped and prayed that our work on the sacred text, the Bible, would be loved. And it came true. You know, many people who are, you know, in the secular world had said, why would you guys do this when people can get plenty of Bible by going to church on a Sunday? They won't watch it on primetime TV. And we said, we think you're wrong. We think Christ and the Bible are the very core of most people in our nation. And of course, 100 million people watch the Bible series.
And we see this now trickling out all over the world.
Yes, it has rippled nay, splashed around the world. As we continue to see the numbers come in, it's been fantastic. It aired in Spain and Portugal, huge numbers. Australia, fantastic numbers came in. Hong Kong, it was the #1 series that week.
That is unbelievable.
And then more recently in the United Kingdom and in Ireland, which of course was of personal interest to Mark and myself, because we are from there.
Okay, I want the real story here. Where did this inspiration really begin? Who was the prime mover here? Be honest. Was it you, Roma?
Well, there was a... Yes, the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit whispered in my heart. You know, I had spent 10 years playing an angel on television and being the messenger of God's love. And it had been such a privilege to play the role of Monica. I loved Touched by an Angel. I loved playing the character. I loved the mission of the show and the outreach of the show. It reached millions and millions of people. And in the years in between, I would often pray, what is it that I'm supposed to do next, God? How can I be used again to magnify you, to spread your word, to spread your loving? And it came in as a whisper, and no better man. I would still be whispering and knocking on a door, perhaps, if it had just been me by myself. But my husband is an incredible warrior and a terrific partner, and where I might have been politely knocking on doors, my husband was right there next to me, kicking those doors down, and together we got this made, and it's just been the journey of a lifetime for us.
When you first heard this idea, were you sold that this could become the phenomena that it has become? I mean, you know the resistance, no doubt, in this community and in parts of Hollywood. I mean, there have been the passions and occasional other projects, but this is not something that would be warmly embraced at first blush, I imagine.
I'm concerned about reaching audiences. I feel if you make something great and it's meaningful in any sort of way, you know, this is like the most important story. So I felt there was an audience. You know, I just felt more of a sense of fear and responsibility, because this is not just a story, it's a sacred text. It's the sacred text that changed the world. You have to know, millions have died for it and billions live by it. That's a big responsibility. But fortunately, we did a good job.
And it was a responsibility that we took very seriously. You know, we worked hand in hand with scholars and theologians and faith leaders to make sure that what we told was accurate and that it emerged onto the screen, always true to the spirit of the book and the text.
You were willing to make changes, I know, to the scenes and text, and you did that throughout the process, really.
The people today, they called you king. They think you were a messiah.
But you seem to ignore them. Aren't you going to be our king?
Who do you think I am?
You are the Son of God.
You can't have known this by what you know of me, Peter. It has been revealed to you by God. You are Peter, and on this rock, I will build my church.
You consulted everybody from Cardinal World to Rick Warren, on and on and on. I mean, it was quite a group of consultants.
We did, and we were so grateful to the faith leaders who stepped up with us and for us, and we've become and remain very close friends with Cardinal World. He stood by us, and he has been such a source of strength, and we've so appreciated our friendship with him.
So tell me, what is it, as you stand back and look at the great success this has been, what is the cultural zeitgeist that this miniseries struck, and why now bring this to the big screen?
Well, I feel that most people in our nation, if we just deal with North America at first, do believe in God and take comfort in God. And therefore, if you present God's story in a compelling, fresh, updated way, people will flock to this because people are seeking hope and love. And the reason we have made the movie, as we were shooting the television series, we realized in seeing Diogo Morgado's portrayal of Jesus and Roma's portrayal of Mary, it ignited the screen, and we said this really should be expanded and be on a big motion picture screen.
My son.
Don't be afraid. Everything is possible with God.
Move forward!
This should be seen, and will be seen, on a large screen, in community, just like going to church, not alone in your living room, in a theatre.
And there's something so extraordinary about that shared experience. You know, that you see the standalone, beautiful narrative of the life of Jesus. Jesus has not been on the big screen in a decade. And it's been 50 years since his whole story was on screen. And our movie covers from the Nativity right through to the Ascension. And it gives you a complete sense of the life of the Savior. And it's just so beautiful. And we've screened it for just a few audiences. And the feedback has been fantastic.
I know your friend Rick Warren told you one of the most dangerous prayers you can pray is, God, use me. Do you have any trepidation now, having gone through this process of praying that prayer?
Well, I think that the beauty of a prayer like that is that you have to be prepared that it might just happen. And but we continue to pray that prayer, and it's been such a privilege for us to be able to combine what we do with what we believe, and to do it with a person, you know, that I love, that we love in our marriage. It's been really such a gift for us.
But Rick was right, you know. It's a very powerful prayer to pray to God and to Jesus, use me. And oftentimes he will. The key is when you feel that answer, yes, I will use you, you have to be willing to get off the couch, and you have to be willing to trip over a few times on the journey. It's not simple. And that starts with more prayer. It starts with seeking advice. And one thing Roma did from the beginning was said, this needs to be across all denominations, because there's more that unites the various denominations than divides.
You know, if everything begins with intention, the intention on this was always one of a loving message, of finding the places that we're united, of finding the places that we could connect. And I think that that's been one of the most beautiful outcomes of the series. And when the movie was announced by 20th Century Fox, who are our partner in distributing it across the country, the movie release came out with the endorsements of 5 huge Christian leaders, Sam Rodriguez, Rick Warren, Cardinal Wuerl, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and Joel Osteen. And I don't know, perhaps, that the 5 of them had ever appeared on a press release before. And I think that that's, you know, it's like surely we can all agree on our love of the Lord.
I want to get into your personal stories just briefly. Roma, you lost your mother at 10. I know, your mother Maureen. And in an interview I read, you quoted her saying, what's bred in the marrow comes out in the bone. What was bred in your marrow that led you to this project? How did your Catholic upbringing shape this and the way you went about bringing this miniseries and now film into a reality?
Well, my Catholic upbringing was very much front and center in my childhood. my father, Paddy, and my mother, Maureen, were devout Catholics. My father actually was a daily communicant. We would, as a family, kneel on the linoleum after supper and say the rosary. I went to a convent school. I was educated by the Sisters of Mercy, or as we sometimes jokingly refer to them, as the Sisters of No Mercy. I was at convent from I was 5 till I was 18. And it certainly, you know, shaped very much the woman that I became. But after my mother died when I was 10, I think we were just so grateful, really, to our faith and the comfort and the support that it brought to us and that it gave to us, and the promise that we will see our mom again.
You said you make choices to honor your parents and to glorify God in your career. What brought you to that moment?
Well, you know, I used to, when I decided to become an actress and the kinds of roles that were being offered to me and the kinds of choices that I had to make as a performer, I used to think when I would read a script, would my father want to see this? My own father. Would my father be proud of this? And then by extension, I used to think, would my heavenly Father want to see this? Is this something that would honor? Is this something that would be honoring of my parents? And certainly, you know, there have been times, my dad also passed away when I was in college. And so I have been orphaned since my very early 20s. I don't know if you still get to say you're an orphan when you're an adult, but I have missed them. I have longed for them my whole life. And there certainly have been times the last few years where I believe they would have just loved, they would have loved the series, they would have loved to see Son of God. They would be very happy, I think, and very proud.
So many of us have seen you for such a long period of time. You're woven into our lives. For me, I saw you, this is something I don't think I've ever told you, I saw you in The Circle with Rex Harrison and Stuart Granger on Broadway, a couple of times actually. But how has that journey been for you? And was there any hesitation in taking on the role of Mary, Mother of God? It's not exactly a role that one takes lightly.
My career began in the theater. I'm a classically trained actress. I can't believe that you saw The Circle.
It was a fantastic show.
And my very first job, paying job, before I got sorted out as an actress, was as a coat check girl. And it was seasonal work, but quite lucrative. And it says so much about America, I think, and the opportunities that can exist here if you're willing to work hard, that I could have been checking coats and then 5 years later starring on the show. But I went on after that to, I had played Jackie Kennedy in a mini-series about her name. I had played the angel Monica on Touched by an Angel. When the opportunity came up for me to play the Blessed Mother, I wasn't certain that when I had gone down to start filming in Morocco that I had ever planned to play a role in it. I had gone there just as a producer. But, you know, it was actually at Mark's suggestion and at Diogo Morgado's encouragement. He said, I think that you should really do this, and we prayed on it, and I stepped into it, and it was the most marvelous experience, you know, because on the one hand, Mary was the mother of the Son of God, but on the other hand, Mary was the mother of a son. And it was profoundly moving to film those scenes, particularly the scenes where she has to help him up with the cross or to stand at the foot of the cross, to imagine, I'm a mother myself, what a mother might be feeling in those moments was profoundly moving to film that.
You see that on the screen, and I can't wait for people to see it on the big screen. It's a different experience. Mark, let's talk about your background for a moment. Your parents worked at or around near the Ford Motor Company in plant there in east of London. What did you learn from them that propelled this incredible journey that you've been on?
Similar to Roma, I come from a working class family, and so Roma and I don't take anything or any blessing or any abundance that we have received for granted. Roma always says to the family, to those who much is given, much is expected. And I think we learned that in our early years. You know, if you think Roma's family is Irish, my family is entirely Scottish. In fact, my grandmother was Irish. And so we had this Celtic bond between us. And I think there's something to be said for that commonality in our marriage and our working class roots. Because although we were very poor, we were always fed well, clothed well, the house was always clean. You know, so there's something great about that. And we always jokingly say it'd be very easy for us to get back on the same bus, on the same route we grew up traveling, because we haven't lost that
Our
second.
housekeepers always say to us, you guys are so nice and so kind to us. And we always joke, we're just a half a generation away from being the housekeepers, you know. We've been so fortunate, we're so grateful.
Is that the engine that drives you all so hard? You work awfully hard. I've never seen two people in this community who are doing so many things and doing them so well constantly. I mean, you all, the travel alone would exhaust most of us. But the fact that you're doing the Voice finale while you're doing this, while you're producing, while you're launching a movie, it's a lot to juggle. How did you were in the parachute regiment of the British Army, which I didn't realize, a Falkland vet. How did this prepare you, not only for what you're doing and the multiplicity of the tasks involved, but particularly working on this project? 3 years in the deserts of Morocco, and then all the marketing difficulties and challenges that come afterward.
Everything anybody does and the struggles they have as they're growing up and starting their work life seems really hard at the time, but they're all informing you for experience. And so I'm in my 50s and I realize, wow, I wish I knew what I knew now when I was 20, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Here's the good news for everybody. Our maturity comes through in making this movie. This movie is the real deal. This movie can live on for decades and become an emotional connector for our faith.
Many say you are a method producer. When you stepped into the and discovered this French international race that eventually led through several incarnations to Survivor, you took part in that race. They say you're a method producer because you experienced the thing itself. What did you experience as a method producer on this project?
I think for both of us, you know, there's no question that working for many years on the Bible Project and of course now Son of God, our faith has deepened, our love has deepened, our marriage has strengthened, but which is not surprising, right? Imagine if you were given the gift, because we have a gift. Our gift is to get to work on this all the time. It's like, imagine swimming in clear, warm water in the Caribbean, and every drop of water is God and your faith. So we're swimming.
Every drop of water is good for you.
We're swimming in our faith all the time. It's like every day. I mean, can you imagine how fortunate we are? And so, are we tired? Yeah. Is there a lot of traveling? Yeah. But we're lucky.
What was the most challenging part of this process in the 3 years? What was the worst part in the 3-year process? There had to be huge challenges along the way.
It's hard to look at things like that, you know. You have to also know, like you mentioned about me doing a lot of extreme, difficult outdoor jungles and mountains. Well, if you lived in the pain, you never climb another mountain or another jungle. They say about childbirth, you know, obviously as a man, I don't know, but that if women dwelt on the pain in the last hours, they'd never do it again, would they?
No more kids.
So humans are structured to try to be sunny and look on the positive side. So it's been a long journey. Every difficult moment is worth it. And you have to know the journey doesn't end. First of all, the next step is the movie coming out. And we need that support. It's February 28th, 2014. It's the Friday preceding Lent. And then it carries on for years to come as Son of God is translated into hundreds of languages and travels the world. We want billions to see it. Remember, millions have died for this story and billions live by it.
Yeah, and there's such an opportunity, I think, for, you know, for this to be part of a new evangelization. You know, I know that we have teenagers ourselves, and there's a real opportunity here that young people learn more through film and television, through seeing a story played out on the screen. And how much easier is it to say, would you come and see a film with me? Perhaps than it is to say, do you want to talk about faith or do you want to go to church?
I want you both to take this on because inevitably you're hearing this or you will hear it. There are people who are going to say, you know, I saw the miniseries, we loved it, we bought the DVD, why do I have to go see this on the big screen? You would say what?
Well, a number of things. You have not seen it like you will see it on the big screen.
It's incredible.
It's, you know, and it's a completely different experience. It has been re-edited. There's
there are new scenes
footage.
As well,
yes,
right?
Yes, a lot of new footage. And just the experience of sitting back and seeing it play out in a larger-than-life way. It's a larger-than-life story, and it deserves this beautiful, big, standalone experience.
In 2 hours, you will be transformed by watching this story of Jesus. You'll be mesmerized by it, and you'll watch it in community. This, on the big screen, is an experience like no other.
It's profoundly moving, and ultimately, it's completely uplifting.
Before we go, this story is going on. Not only are there envisioned translations of Son of God, there are other iterations of this story that you all are now producing. You've got some news about AD.
Yes, we're delighted that we are all systems go on a follow-up series for NBC called AD, which will emotionally reset the story around the crucifixion and follow the lives of the disciples, of the drama and the danger of those early days and the beginnings of what became the Christian church.
What do you hope will be the impact of all of this on people, Mark? Not only the release of Son of God, but AD, the music tour, the study guides. I mean, it seems there's a multiplicity of fronts on this story.
2013 brought the Bible series to the world. 2014 brings Son of God, the motion picture. And we won't stop there. We'll go on and continue using our influence in Hollywood and our faith to combine to bring more. And in this house, it's all God all the time.
Well, that's not a bad way to end our interview. Thank you for having me in God's house.
Thank you.
There is something unusual about him.
We must arrest this false prophet.
But what if he is who they say he is?
Won't somebody tell me?
Peter, come.
Answer if you can.
One of you here will betray me to my enemies.
I want someone to tell me what is the soul of a man.
Jesus of Nazareth, you are charged with blasphemy.
He has employed demons to heal. He threatened to destroy the temple.
Tell us, are you the Son of God?
I am.
Blasphemer!
I am coming.
There was one character in the Bible that was deemed unworthy of appearing in Son of God, the movie, Satan. You may recall a bit of controversy over what some saw as a striking resemblance between the actor playing Satan and President Barack Obama. So Satan has been removed from the theatrical release. Roma Downey says she wants all of the focus to be on Jesus, so, quote, "We cast Satan out." No word yet from Satan's agent. Son of God opens in theaters nationwide on February 28th. Visit sonofgodmovie.com for more details. Now to our final segment. The peace process in Syria's long-running civil war broke down this week. Violence continues to escalate in Ukraine, and there's unrest in Venezuela. What is driving all of this tension, and what is the common denominator in these conflicts? Here to update us on the latest news and give us some perspective of what's fueling all of this is the advisor to the Anti-terrorism Caucus in the House of Representatives, an expert on the Middle East and the world, and our regular World Over contributor, Dr. WALID PHARES. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with, there was a House hearing recently on Capitol Hill about this ongoing Christian persecution. They say it's getting worse. Why hasn't it stopped?
Because the regimes who are involved in it, Iran, Sudan, but also the organizations, mostly the jihadists, are getting worse at persecuting them. In Syria, not only Al-Qaeda, more extreme than Al-Qaeda, Daesh is now going after Christian families. Hundreds of thousands are leaving the region.
Yeah, well, we hear about Nigeria, which we reported earlier in the show. Now, you supported at one time a special envoy that would sort of represent religious minorities at the State Department. Do you still advocate that?
The idea I have advanced in the past was to have a representative at the level of the administration that would go and meet with those leaders and represent them internationally. Unfortunately, what we have right now is a bureaucratic position, which is going to have reports to the administration, and the policy remains the same.
While we focus on Ukraine, and we're going to talk about it in a moment, this situation in Syria, this civil war has gone on for 4 years. Peace talks broke down this week in Geneva. John Kerry says Iran and Russia are to blame. You say what?
Well, I say the United States administration is first to blame itself, number one, because when it could have done things in 2011, we were still in Iraq. Al-Qaeda was not in. Hezbollah was not in. We did not. In 2012, we had our elections. 2013, we wasted time basically not putting enough pressure on Assad on the one hand, nor basically curbing down the activities of the jihadists. So we are harvesting what we have done.
Now this is spilling into Lebanon. You have all these refugees, 1 million of them, who have gone into Lebanon. What will be the spillover effect? And do you see Hezbollah getting involved now, because they're certainly a presence in Lebanon?
Hezbollah has been involved in Syria for the last year and a half. They have sent their forces inside the Assad areas and are moving against the other areas. Now they're getting blasted by Al-Qaeda. Lebanon, as you said, is going down as an extension of the war in Syria.
And this is becoming a launch pad, this entire region, particularly Syria, for global terrorism, global jihad. We have reports this week from the Department of Homeland Security. They're worried about a new type of shoe bomb.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this, and where is this being developed? Where is this coming from?
The problem is that there are many other reports stating that the jihadist networks, including Al-Qaeda, is gaining a lot in Syria, coming into Lebanon, going back to Iraq. We're talking about 3 countries. That huge network is 5 times the size of what Al-Qaeda had in Afghanistan and in Pakistan before the 2001 attack, the 2001 attack. Therefore, I think that the basis that Al-Qaeda will have in Syria may not just be for Syria, they may be launching pads for the world.
Wow. We see this explosion of violence. Again, another uprising in Venezuela. In the wake of Chavez's regime, now you have the people rising up against this current regime. What is the common thread that you see running through what we're seeing in Kiev, what we're seeing in Syria, and now what we're seeing in Venezuela? Is there a common thread?
There is one that I can see, which is when the West in general, the United States in particular, abandoned those people to their fate. Look what we've done in Syria. We were about to intervene, we did not. Ukraine, we are not doing enough. We're doing resolutions. The Europeans are even not doing anything.
Well, they're freezing assets.
They are, perhaps, at the end of every sentence. Yeah. And then in Venezuela, of course, we have allowed that regime to suppress. It's a neighboring nation. When that arrives to that point, then civil society would rise. That's what they've done actually in Egypt, if you recall, when we discussed how the Brotherhood controlled Egypt. We haven't done anything. Egyptian people rose.
Now, the president in Ukraine, He was supposed to craft a deal, solidify a deal with the European Union. At the last moment, in the 11th hour in November, he talks to Vladimir Putin, and Putin makes this offer of economic relief to him. He signs on and seems to be linking arms with Putin. The people have reacted in a terrible way since then, protesting first peaceably, now all hell is breaking loose on the ground. How do you get this thing back on track, and what does Vladimir Putin hope to achieve through this conflict?
Well, first of all, what he hopes that it won't be achieved is that Ukraine will join Europe. That would deprive him from an access to the Black Sea. And from the Black Sea, he can't even enter the Mediterranean, I mean, with his fleet and so on. Right. It's very essential for him. But at the same time, he is stopping a population, a European population in Ukraine to join the European community. So that is going to be a problem, and I think both sides are determined in this issue.
Now, the protesters want the president to leave and to have elections quickly. Do you see that happening?
It is not going to happen, because if he does that, he will lose, and Ukraine will move in the other area, and then the Russians will move in, and we will be close to a major crisis.
Now, the president said this week, this is not a chess game between the United States and Russia, and we shouldn't interpret it that way. Is it a chess game?
He doesn't want it to be a chess game. He doesn't want to have any chess game in the region. He has enough on his plate. But the Russians are playing chess, and they're playing it unilaterally at this point.
They're also playing it in Syria. We see it in Syria as well. We're seeing it all over the world. South Korea, North Korea, Syria, and now here. What is the option here? And isn't this outside of the United States sphere of influence, Walid?
It is outside of our traditional influence, but what is inside our influence is the fact that we should support the democratic movements. We have abandoned them since 2009, when the president basically abandoned the Iranian populations who were on the streets trying to rise. And of course, we've abandoned the civil society in Egypt, as I just mentioned, and in Syria, and in Venezuela, and now in Ukraine. There is a pattern, and people are understanding that in the region.
Very good. Dr. Walid Phares, thank you for being here, as always, and for your insights. Walid Phares' new book, The Lost Spring, will be out in March, and it'll be available in bookstores everywhere and online. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, that is all the time we have for now. Until next week, the show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. The links are on my website. And if you sign up for the free e-blast, I'll send you exclusive content and the latest news, as I did this week. Go to the center of the web page, RaymondArroyo.com. You can also catch the show 24/7 on EWTN's YouTube channel. I also post the show on Facebook and Twitter, and you can get our podcast by visiting the EWTN website. There's nowhere you can't see us. A special note to those of you in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I will be speaking at the Acton Institute and Aquinas College this Tuesday, February 25th. There's a lunch talk at Acton on evangelizing in the shrinking public square, and an evening talk at the college on the power of art. I hope you all will come. The details are at RaymondArroyo.com. Check it out. Be sure to tune in next week for my exclusive interview with best-selling author Dean Koontz. And Catholic League President Bill Donahue will be here to sound off on the Oscar-nominated film Philomena. Bill has some problems with Philomena. In the meantime, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo from Washington, D.C. We'll see you next time. Bye now.